Okay, in the electronic version, it's paragraph 61 in the Kindle version. So we are in the section titled "The Escape from Fear." In the edited version, in the edited version, let's go back here. In the edited version, this need not be. If you are in the original edition, it's called "The Escape from Fear." Okay, so they have different titles in the two different versions. And we are in the paragraph that starts "when you feel guilty." Okay, I'm just going to bring you up to speed with this section, since this is our second installment of this particular section, and this is where we left off last week. So what I was saying about this section last week is this is my Course in Miracles medicine cabinet section for mood issues. Whenever I've got a mood issues, a bad mood, this is my medicine cabinet. I go right to this section because it goes over when you are in a bad mood, when you've got bad mood, when you've got sadness, when you've got depression, when you have anxiety, when you feel guilty, what to do, what does it mean, what's really going on. It gets to the causal level of what's really happening, and then what to do about it. So this is a very, very practical, healing, helpful section when you are in a bad mood of some kind and really are done with it and really would like to have some kind of a miracle of a better mood or peace. Okay? So, what we went through last week, before we get to guilt, first it started off with when you're in a bad mood. Okay, so what's a bad mood? First, of course, says a bad mood is any time you are not feeling wholly joyous. Okay? Wow, I'm in a bad mood more than I thought. Okay, so he says when you are in a mood that's not wholly joyous, he says this is what you need to know about that bad mood. You need to know, first of all, that this need not be, which is a very radical thing to remember. The first thing I'm supposed to remember is it doesn't have to be like this. I don't have to feel this way if I don't want to feel this way. There's other options of things to feel. What? That's the last thing I think when I'm having a bad mood. I don't go, wow, I wonder if there's any other options of feelings to feel here. We immediately, instinctively assume that the way we're feeling is the only way that we could realistically feel. We don't have that open mind. We don't have an open mind until we've suffered enough. And then we think, I wonder if this is the only emotion to feel. Right? And of course, saying that's not, having a bad mood, having a negative emotion is not the only response possible in the whole realm of possibilities. So the first thing you're supposed to tell yourself is, I am in a bad mood and this need not be. Okay? Then he goes on to say that when you are in a bad mood, that here's what has occurred. You are in a bad mood because you have thought wrongly about some soul that God or love has created. That's why you're in a bad mood. Wow, doesn't seem like the reason I was in a bad mood today, does it? I thought wrongly about somebody, some soul that love, that perfect love created. That's why I'm in a bad mood. Okay? Who knew? And then it tells you what to do to change your mood. It says that in every case you've thought wrongly about some soul that God created. And here's what you can do if you would like to have a better mood. If you are done with the suffering of that mood, it hasn't gotten you the payoff you thought maybe it might. What it says to do is this. It says, here's what you should do. Think honestly what you have thought that a perfectly loving mind would not have thought. What have you been thinking that God or love probably wouldn't have been thinking about that person? That's the first thing. Okay? All right, that shouldn't be too easy to discern what that might be. You won't have to look too far in what it is you were thinking. Okay? This forces you to get completely honest about what you're really thinking, which we're not in a great habit of doing. Okay, then, so first you go, what is it that I've been thinking about somebody that a loving creator would not have thought about that person, okay? Then it says, then you need to think what it is that a loving creator, the being that created them, does think about them that you have not thought about them. And then choose to change your mind according to that, okay? So that's the first medicinal piece in that section that covers all what we call bad moods. When your mood tells you you have chosen wrongly. Isn't that interesting? How do you know when you've chosen wrongly? How do you know when you're not perceiving something correctly? I know that's hard to even think of because we always just assume that the way we're seeing it is exactly the way it really is. Isn't that interesting? We always automatically assume that however we're seeing the situation, that is the way it is. And then in the second, all it takes is a second though of going, I wonder if the way I'm seeing it and the way I'm seeing them is really the truth about it, or the truth about them, or the only way to see it. The moment some bit of doubt enters your mind about the way you're seeing it, especially if you don't like the way you feel, that's your escape from the bad mood. That's your escape from the fear that you're experiencing. So first it tells us that we know that we're perceiving incorrectly because our mood tells us. It's a very radical concept in the Course. Bad mood equals wrong perception. You're not seeing what's really going on. You're not seeing what's really there. You're not seeing who's really there. You're not seeing it correctly. Okay? That's a foundational concept in A Course in Miracles. Right? Okay. And then it says, so that was for bad mood. Then it says, talks about sadness and depression. Okay, anybody ever experienced any of that? No, good. Okay, I didn't think so. Okay, well then I'm just talking about myself right now. Okay, so it says when you are experiencing sadness or when you are experiencing depression, here's what you need to know about that. So any place in your experience where you've been experiencing any sadness or depression lately, this is for you. Apply this here. When you're feeling sadness or depression, it's because you are perceiving yourself as being deprived of something you want but don't have. Wow. Really? That's where the depression or sadness is coming from? Who knew? Okay, so what's going on? I feel like I'm being deprived of something I want, but I don't have it. That's why I'm feeling sad or depressed. Okay? So apply this to whatever you are experiencing sadness or depression about. And then here's the answer. Again, tell yourself, this need not be. This need not be. I don't have to feel depressed or sad. That's not the only emotional option. That's not the only response option. That's not the only thing I could be feeling. There could be another way of feeling. There could be another way of seeing. Right? That's the first thing we're supposed to tell us. Oh yeah, I don't have to feel this way. There's no law that says when you don't have this that you want, you have to feel depressed. Right? That's not a given. Even though we are telling ourselves unconsciously, well, I have to feel this way because you know what happened. I have to feel this way. Of course I have to feel this way. Right? So the first thing we're supposed to remind ourselves is it doesn't have to be this way. This isn't the only option. And then we're supposed to tell ourselves that I am deprived of nothing except by my own decision. I am deprived of nothing but except by my own decision. I'm sad and depressed because I think I've been deprived of love. I am deprived of nothing except by my own decision. I'm the one who decided that I was somehow deprived of love. I'm the one who decided that I was being deprived of abundance. I'm the one. And then what am I supposed to do? Decide otherwise. I decided to deprive myself. I decided to deprive myself of love. I decided to deprive myself of joy. I decided to deprive myself of the possibilities. I decided to deprive myself of what I'm telling myself that was taken from me by you-know-who, or this situation. Okay? So that's what we're supposed to tell ourselves when we are experiencing sadness or depression. Any questions on that? Can anybody think of a situation right now where they've been experiencing sadness or depression and they are just certain that that is not what's going on? Anyone? Any yes buts? Okay, thank you. Yes, lady in the blue jacket.
Oh, I didn't know you wanted us to tell.
Oh, come on now, Lindsay, come on. No, you don't have to say
You
it.
can't stay here all night.
And so, when you hear what this is saying about that, does it seem to fit? Does it seem to fit? Does it seem like the sadness or the depression is coming from the perception of being deprived of something that you want but don't have?
That's true.
Yeah.
If you had it, you wouldn't be sad.
That's right. And notice how whenever we're experiencing sadness or depression and seeing ourselves as deprived, it's never what we're depriving ourselves. It's always what the world is depriving us, what you-know-who is depriving us of, what this situation is depriving us of. It's never my decision. When we are experiencing that negative emotion, it always has this element of projection to it. It's never like, that's an interesting emotion that I am giving myself. That's an interesting decision that I've made about this situation. Wow, of all the options of ways to perceive this and feel about this, I chose this response. That's interesting. It's never like that. It's almost like the Course says that anger and depression really is projection. It's like, look what's being done to me. Look what's happening to me. Right? And so that's the mistake. That's what keeps it in place. That's what keeps it going. That's what makes it seem real. And that's what fills it with more and more negative emotion. Apparently from this, the moment you tell yourself, this is not the only option. This is not the only way to feel. Perhaps there's another way to look at it. Perhaps there's another way to feel. Maybe I'm actually wrong. This is, that's the escape. That's the turning point.
So what I hear here, you started off with feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to the decide part,
Mm-hmm.
which is just a thought.
That's right.
So the feelings are just how we experience our thoughts.
That's right. The feelings.
And we don't work on those.
That's right.
So
The
our
feelings.
thoughts is the problem.
That's right. The feelings are always just the indicators.
And that's where my perception is based on everything I think I see and think and
That's
know.
right. That's right.
So the only way to change that is new information.
That's exactly. And the only way to let in new information is to say, maybe I don't know everything there is to know about this situation or this person. We were talking about last week about the highest that an ego thinking, the highest that human thinking can go. I mean, the very highest human thinking can go is this. Maybe what I know isn't all there is to know. That's as high as it goes. When you get past that, you've broken through the ceiling of human thinking, or ego-mindedness, as the Course would call it. That's as high as human thinking gets. Because as soon as you entertain some doubt about the reality of what you're thinking, when you're not feeling good, the moment you do that, you break through that ceiling, and now your mind is open to be taught by a mind that knows maybe just a little more than you do. But as long as you think, well, the way I'm seeing it, that's the way I see it. And yeah, it may not feel good, but I'm right. As long as you stay there, then you keep the problem. You keep the problem. Now maybe it will shift forms shortly, but you will keep it. You will never go beyond it. Wow.
What I'm hearing is that the degree of the emotion you feel is proportional to the value you give the depravity.
Or your perception, right?
Perception of the depravity.
Absolutely. To the degree that you feel bad, that's the degree to which you are wrong about the way you're seeing it. And that is the single most difficult thing for the human mind to accept. Not much less to say. Wow, okay. I mean, that's got to be one of the most difficult things that the ego, for us as humans to acknowledge, to even permit into our awareness. The worse I feel, the more inaccurate my assessment or interpretation is. I just hate that. Because what is it that I'm feeling when I'm most angry? That I am the most right.
Most deprived.
I am the most deprived.
And oftentimes, this is my experience, is the more, intense the emotion, it sometimes generates the spiral of the feeling being more, I'm gonna stretch it even more, I hate myself even more, I give more value to that.
Yeah.
And so then I feel worse.
Yes. There is a part of us that would rather be completely miserable and die from that than say, I hope I'm wrong. I must be wrong about this person. And I am aware of that part of myself. When I am upset and angry and sad and depressed, I can feel that part of me that would rather just die than say, I must be wrong. I hope I'm wrong about the way I'm seeing it. Right? And that part is the part that is my self-hatred. We all have a belief within us that is self-hating, and that's what the Course calls the ego. Right? And that's the part that wants to be right instead of happy, and is willing to die to be right when it could be happy.
So through this we become aware, because I think mostly we are not, of all the things we decided we needed or wanted or whatever you want to call it, or both. Because we wander around this world having decided all these things, not even knowing that we did.
That's exactly right.
At least that I did.
That's exactly right. And that's why the Course says that that's where mood detection comes in. That's where your feelings become very important in your healing and awakening process. Your feelings, even though your feelings are secondary, they are symptoms, they're your indicators that you can't deny. I can be very unaware of what I'm really thinking, okay? Because I've shoved a lot of what I'm really thinking into my unconscious mind. But you can't really shove your feelings into your unconscious mind. They always show. They always show. You may deny that you are angry. I'm not angry. I'm not angry. I'm not angry. Right? But the anger, the emotion always shows. It always leaks out. You can hide your thoughts, but you really can't hide your feelings. They do show, right? And so the Course says that the one right use of judgment, since we made judgment, Spirit gave a higher use of judgment, and this is it. Judge your feelings. How do you feel? How do you feel? Yeah, we know you can hide from yourself and be in denial about what you're thinking, but how do you feel right now? Do you feel wholly joyous? Do you feel wholly joyous? No? Okay, well then that's how you know that what you're thinking is wrong. That's how you know that you're misperceiving, misinterpreting, meaning making something up out of your fear. That's how you know. So it's the one right use of judgment is, how do you feel?
But often our thoughts are, you made me realize we're just misinterpreting evidence.
That's exactly right.
You know,
It's
we
exactly
take
right.
all this, it's a misinterpretation. They did this, so that means that.
That's
you know.
right. That's exactly right. And we are always seeing only what we believe we are. That's all we ever see in the moment. That's all perception can ever show you. Perception, your eyes, your senses, doesn't see reality. This body and all its senses was not made to perceive reality. It can't perceive reality, what's really here, what's really happening, who you really are, who they really are. Our senses were made to not see what's really here.
And we only see our position, right?
And we only see what we believe we are. So, and that shifts from moment to moment. Some days I believe that I am loving and lovable. And so I see that around me. I see a loving world. And some days I don't perceive myself as loving and lovable. And I look out and I see a scary world, a mean world, a cruel world, a vicious world, a lacking world, an angry world, an unsafe world. So my perception and my senses will only show me what I am believing about myself. Everything comes down to that. Everything comes down to that. And if you want to experience a fundamental, real change in your life, then you always have to go, you have to start with, how do I feel? And then you have to go from there to, what do I believe I am? That is the core. That is the core belief. It's the causal level of everything. What do I believe I am? And if I don't like the way I feel, and obviously don't think that I am loving and lovable, then I need to ask for another perception of myself. I need to say, okay, whatever created me, what am I? What did you create me to be? I need to start asking, what am I? Who am I? Not of myself, I didn't create myself, but from the entity, the being, the mind that did create me.
I don't know if this is a good question, but who I think I am, what I think I am, is that from what I've decided, or I mean, do I believe what I'm in from what I've decided I want to be, or does who I think I am determine that decision is what's cause and effect there?
Well, it started with the original addition to deny what I am. And that's a decision that I made so far back in human memory that the human mind doesn't recall that. Okay? But it's still occurring in every moment. And so if I am in a situation and I don't like the way I feel, I'm unhappy, I'm feeling deprived, I don't feel like there's enough, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling miserable and sick, then what I have to go get to eventually is, wow, I am wrong about myself. I have decided something about myself that is unloving. I am seeing myself as unloving and unlovable, and I'm seeing myself wrongly. And then ask for the correct perception of yourself and another. Because remember, the bad mood tells you that you have thought wrongly about some soul that love has created. That is what it's coming down to. And ultimately, that's you. Who's the soul that you've thought wrongly about, that you're misperceiving, that you're misinterpreting? Yourself. The way I'm thinking about myself is, I'm not very loving, I'm not very lovable, I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate. There's definitely something wrong with me. I'm not very lovable. I'm not a very loving person. I'm not good enough. It ultimately comes down to, what are you feeling and thinking about yourself? And if you want to change the situation at a fundamental level, go back to that. And it's very practical. It's very practical. Let's say you're in a situation and it is uncomfortable and it is painful and there is anger and there's a lot of negative emotion. immediately all you have to do is go, wow, look at this reflection of how I'm feeling about myself right now. Interesting reflection of how I'm thinking about myself today. Look at this. No surprise this is happening today. This reflects exactly how I was feeling and thinking about myself earlier. Okay, so this is the result of that. It's very practical. It's very practical. I don't have to get metaphysical. I don't have to get too deep. All I have to do is know that whatever I'm seeing and experiencing, especially if there's a negative emotion, is a reflection of how I am thinking about myself in that moment. And then if you don't want to feel it anymore, say, I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong about the way I was feeling about myself today. Wow, that gets us completely out of denial.
And so would that change our experience?
And that will change your experience like that. And that's what the Course in Miracles calls a miracle. You change your mind in one instant, your world changes in the next. That's what we call a miracle. That's what we call a miracle. We go, wow, that was a miracle. Because it was that fast and that dramatic. Okay? All right. So that was about sadness and depression. Anybody have any questions about sadness or depression before we go on? All right. And this is still a review from last week. The next one, the next negative emotion it went into was anxiety. Anybody ever experienced any of that? Today. All right. All right. And so, where is it that you've experienced anxiety most recently? Right? This is what it says about anxiety. Anxiety comes from the capriciousness or the unpredictability of the ego. So, I feel anxious because I don't know what my crazy ego is going to come up with next. I just don't know what's going to come up with next. I'm just rocking along, pop, right? And that's where anxiety comes from. I don't know what's going to come, and I don't know when, and I don't know what's going to pop up, and oh my God, I'm trying so hard to control it. I'm trying so hard to control it. Oh, pop, right? He says that's why we feel anxious. Then it says that, and then it gives, so that's the cause. I'm afraid of the unpredictability of my ego, because that is how the ego is. You don't know when it's going to pop up, and how, and when, and through whom. Okay? Isn't that right? That's a very good description of the ego. Unpredictable. Like a psycho friend. You don't know what they're going to be coming up with and what they're going to be doing at any given moment. It could be really nice one moment, and the next moment they could be coming after you. That's exactly the perfect description of the ego. Okay? Then it says again, what's the first thing to tell you if you would like to not feel anxious anymore? First thing to tell yourself is, this need not be. This isn't the only option of emotional response. I don't have to be anxious right now. Just because I don't know what the ego is going to come up with next, I don't have to feel anxious. This need not be. Interesting. He's saying to say that after every negative emotion. No, which means to be certain. This need not be. It doesn't have to be like this. Okay? Then goes on to tell us why. I mean, you don't have to feel anxious. Please tell me why I don't have to feel anxious today. Please tell me why. The reason that we don't have to feel anxious, the voice of the Course says, is because you can be just as vigilant for truth as your ego can be for fear. Really, I can? You mean no matter what comes up, no matter what the ego comes up with, no matter what my fear and my guilt and depression comes up with, no matter what somebody else's ego comes up with, I can always be as handy and fast with the truth as my ego is for fear. And that is the healing of the anxiety. Because what's anxiety? It's really worry. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? It could be anything. What's going to happen next? Right? It's an anxiety like worry. And so, this need not be. I don't have to feel anxious. I don't need to be worried about what's going to happen next. Because no matter what happened next, I have the truth. I have the truth And I can be as vigilant for the truth as much as my ego is for fear. So no matter what comes up, I have the truth that I can apply that will produce a miracle of peace, no matter what. Wow, that's the cure for worry. Wow. What if we actually believed that? Wow, for a day. What if we actually believed that? What if we actually thought, I don't really need to be afraid of my ego? That would be incredible. I recognize I am afraid of my ego. I have moments of deep anxiety where I see that my ego is cruel. It is mean. It is unpredictable. It is vicious. Anybody else have an ego like that? Anybody notice that they have an ego like that? Anybody notice that the world has an ego like that? That's vicious, cruel, unpredictable, mean. Wow. And so, if you really perceive the nature of the ego that is in our mind, it makes sense to be afraid of it. It's not a nice idea. The Course in Miracles says, the purpose of the ego's one goal, and what's the ego? The ego is a belief system that we adopted a long time ago and then identified with as ourself. We've identified with it so closely that we just think we are this fearful, angry, guilty, deprived, lacking, unloving, unlovable thing, right? That's how deeply we've identified with it. And so when we hear something say, you are only love, and that's it, we're like, very suspicious of that. Anybody who says, you are only love, we're like, whoa, there's some bliss ninny. Get away from her. It seems ridiculous. That's how deeply we've identified with the ego, right? And the Course in Miracles says, the purpose, the one goal of this ego in the human mind is the crucifixion of the souls of God. That's its one purpose. Like a parasite. The ego is like a parasite within us. What is it? What's the purpose of the parasite? To kill the host, right? Not realizing that when that parasite kills the host, what happens to the parasite? That's how we know the ego is insane. Because the ego is trying to kill us. But we're its host. That's how we know we have something insane within us. Okay? So it makes sense when you begin to perceive the nature of this belief system that we've adopted and identified with, it makes good sense, in one sense, to be afraid of it. Because it doesn't love us. Okay? But at the same time, he's saying, even though you have that kind of ego in your mind, even though you have a self-destructive, cruel, unpredictable, mean, stupid ego in your own self, you still don't have to be anxious. Wow, that's good news. That's really good news. Because I do have moments when I do see the nature of my ego and I start to shake with fear. Sometimes I look out into the world and see the nature of the ego, the human ego, and I just shake. Literally shake. Because it's terrifying to know that thought system is in my own mind and it occupies my world. But here it's saying, I still don't have to be afraid. I still don't have to worry, even though I'm in an insane world and I've got an insane mind. I still don't have to feel anxious. Because no matter what the ego tries to do, the truth that we have is still stronger yet. So no matter what, the truth of love, the truth that you only love will always be more powerful than your self-destructive, self-hating ego. Isn't that good news? And the crowd went crazy with applause. That the truth about them would always be more powerful. Then there's self-hatred. They jumped up for joy. The teacher could barely contain the room. All right. So that's why we don't have to be anxious. Yay. Okay. Now, so we've covered bad moods. We've covered sadness, depression, and anxiety. All right. Aren't you glad you came to this cheery class? So uplifting. Okay. Any questions about those before we go on to the next one? Yes.
You know, I've been spending some time in chapter 12, where he talks about we're not seriously disturbed by our own hostility,
Right.
that we're really afraid of redemption.
That's right. That's right.
And this maybe takes it a step further than where you're going
Yes.
tonight, but
Yes. The further you go into the text, the deeper it goes into the nature, the real nature of the ego. It's like, at first it's like talking about the ego in very muted tones. The ego's not your friend. As it gets farther in there, it says that the ego has murderous intention. And what was it that you said? Open hostility.
that we're not seriously disturbed by
Yes.
our own hostility.
That's right.
You see that in everyday life.
That's absolutely. We are not seriously disturbed by our own hostility. What we're seriously disturbed by is the thought that that need not be, and that it might be wrong. Wow. That's what I'm seriously disturbed about. And how do I know that what I really want is the hostility? How do I know that what I really want is to be right? Even if it makes me miserable, I don't care. I really want to be right. How do I know that that's my goal? I know that because when the truth tells me that this need not be, I could be happy. I could choose another thought. Well, I don't listen to that truth. I don't pick up that book. And then when somebody tells me, they see my hostility, they see my depression, my sadness, my pain, and they say, you know, there could be a better way. You could be wrong about how you're seeing it. Well, then I quickly get away from them and call them crazy and then be offended by them. How dare you? You don't really understand what I'm going through. That's the proof that we really want our hostility more than the peace. Somebody says, you know, you could have peace instead of this. And we say, well, you're insane and you're not my friend. Because my friend would join in my suffering and agree with me. Right? And then, but when we have, the Course in Miracles says, your tolerance for pain may be very high. Obviously, our tolerance for misery can be very high. He says, but your tolerance for misery is not without limit. Thank God. What does that mean? That means eventually everybody in some time will get to the point where they say, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. I cannot take this anymore. I can't take it anymore. I'm tired of suffering. And then we say, there's got to be a better way. Even if it means being wrong. And he says, at that moment, you hit your escape. You hit your escape hatch. Wow. So isn't that good to know that, yeah, your tolerance for suffering in this situation may be high, but it's not without limit at some point. So just enjoy it. If you're miserable in this situation and you notice you're not very motivated to look at your own thoughts and change your own thoughts and open your mind and you might be wrong, then just know that you haven't hit your limit yet.
And do you think it's because we're so afraid of redemption that that's why we have such a high tolerance for
I think, yes,
hostility?
that's what the Course does say. He says that your real fear is of love. That's our greatest fear. You know, we say, oh, I don't like being miserable. It really sucks. I hate being miserable. I don't like being angry all the time, but we really love it. That's why we know we love it, because we defend it. Somebody says, well, you know, it could be a better way. And I'm like, what do you know? Or a book tells me it could be wrong. The book tells me there could be a better way. I close that, put that away, never pick that up again. That's how we're proving all the time that that's what we really want. our real terror is of redemption, which means love. Why is that? That I run into the arms of misery and anger and grievances. I love that. Oh yeah.
That's because we're not giving it to ourselves, because the only thing we're lacking is we're not giving it to ourselves. right?
Exactly.
We don't want to give ourselves love.
That's right. Why is it that I run into the arms of drama and conflict and pain? I love it. It's because in the arms of love, which doesn't see conflict, which doesn't see my problems, which doesn't even see me as separate from everything, I think I would lose myself completely. I would be swept away from myself. I would be gone. Because love doesn't see a separate self right here. Love doesn't see me, my body. Love doesn't see my conflict. And so to run into the arms of love would mean to lose everything that I think is me and that I'm clinging to be me, that's mine.
Specialness.
Yes, exactly. You know, the Course says we'd rather die in miserable specialness, meaning separateness, aloneness, than experience eternal life ecstasy in the oneness that is. And you got that right. That sounds boring.
Because we want to continue to hide behind the image that we made, right? We don't want to get...
Yeah, I've so identified with my separate identity. This is who I am. See this body? See this name? See this personality? See the things I have? See my bone? See my bone? This is me. Really, I mean it is. Just watch what happens if I lose it. You see that I believe it's me. You'll get that real quick. So this, I believe, is me instead of the all that is. And so the love doesn't see this as me. It doesn't hold me as separate. It doesn't see me as separate from all that is. And so to go to the arms of love, which is truth, would be to lose all that separately identifies me as me. And it's to lose me. And that's why I'm not seriously disturbed by my hostility. And I defend it. But I run screaming from love, which is truth. And truth, which is love. Why is it that we seem to have such a higher tolerance for drama and chaos, but when it comes to reading a few minutes of truth, I can't do it? I fall asleep. What is up with that? That's why. That's why. Wow.
I still have a question about anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to be afraid of the capriciousness of the ego because truth is stronger than that.
That will always be stronger.
The question is, do I have to believe that, or will it work in spite of my not believing it at the time? Because if I believed it, I probably wouldn't be anxious.
Right, exactly.
Actually, when I'm anxious, I'm obviously not believing that.
Obviously. Yeah, so you don't have to believe it. All you have to do is say, this need not be. Maybe there's another way of seeing this. Maybe I'm wrong about how I'm seeing this.
So, if you open the doubt, then you count on the power of Holy Spirit to help you with your unbelief and
Exactly.
change your experience.
This is the correct use of doubt. Doubt the truthfulness of, doubt the accuracy of your interpretation if you don't like how you feel. That is the doubt that will save you from depression and anxiety and sadness and fear and guilt. Wow.
And the only reason you're anxious is because you're not present and you're in a cycle of behavior that you've created results before that you have not corrected. So you fear the outcome will be the same on some level than it had been before, the way I perceive it.
You're doing the past past future thing.
Right, and then, but if you recognize that's what your thought process is, and then you can go to that place, well, there's got to be a better way, and then you bring yourself out of that past. And
So you're saying use now to
Right.
cure the
That's right.
you
future
think you're
past.
thinking about the future, but you're really
Yeah.
thinking
I
about
have noticed that that's what we
Yeah.
do.
That's
I'm
right.
afraid tomorrow's gonna be like yesterday, or
Absolutely.
whatever the time period.
Right, I got
Yep.
the same problems tomorrow as I have yesterday. you
Yeah,
know.
I'm afraid tomorrow is gonna be just like my past.
I have to
Right.
use now to break
That's
that
right.
cycle, which is
And,
when my.
and it will be if you don't make a new interpretation. It absolutely will be. But no matter what happens tomorrow, you have the truth that you can use, that you can remember, that can and will bring you peace and abundance and safety if you will use it. Hallelujah. Now that is what enables you to walk through your world not beset with anxiety and worry. You know the kind of anxiety and worry where you're so afraid of what's going to happen that you just go into total inertia right now. You just stop growing. You stop evolving because you're so afraid that it could be worse. I know. I'll just stop. But you see how we do that sometimes, and you see how other people do that. They're so afraid the future's going to be worse than the past that they just think, if I can just keep no change, if I could just have no change happening right now, everything be the same, if I could just keep everything the same, then I won't have to worry about whatever might come to pass. Wow. And that's how we stop growing as human beings. That's how we stop growing as evolving beings that we are. We were created to evolve. We were created to expand and grow. And we stop that process of growing and changing because we want to keep everything exactly as it is now. Keep it the same because I'm so afraid of how it could be tomorrow. Wow. And we don't have to do that. We don't have to exercise control instead of faith if we remember that the truth will always be more powerful. Your truth, the truth about who you are, the truth about the universe, the truth about God will always be more powerful than whatever the ego comes up with, whatever it is. Even the death of the body. The truth about you will always be more powerful. And anytime you use and access and choose that truth, anytime you are accessing something that has ultimate power over the ego. And so we don't need to be worried, don't need to be afraid. Wow. Isn't that beautiful? Boy, that's helpful. This is a very practical section. This section is not talking about things we cannot relate to, like heaven, like peace, like joy, like abundance, right? Thank God. It's always something we can relate to. Come on, talk to me about something I can relate to, okay? Like anxiety, depression, guilt, okay? Deprivation, I love that. I can really get into that. Deprivation. Who's depriving me today? All right, so now we're going to go on to the next one. And that says, when you feel guilty. When you feel guilty. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to know, which means to be certain, that your ego, the ego, has indeed violated the laws of God or love, but you have not. And so what you're also supposed to do is leave the so-called sins of the ego, the things you're feeling guilty about, to me, says our teacher. That is what the atonement or A Course in Miracles is for. But until you change your mind about those whom your ego has hurt, the Course in Miracles cannot release you. That's because as long as you feel guilty, your ego is in command, because only the ego can experience guilt. And again, this need not be. It need not be that your response is to feel guilty. Okay, so let's dissect a little bit better. What is guilt according to A Course in Miracles? Okay, guilt is when your ego has violated the laws of love. Okay? Your ego meaning what? Has thought lovelessly. It has thought unlovingly about you or somebody else. Okay? It's violated the laws of love. What do you mean? Well, my ego has judged what that person is, thinking that I created their reality, and their reality is up to me to decide in this moment, so I'm going to judge their reality as I see fit. Okay? That's the ego violating the laws of love. Because the laws of love have set it up where everything that is has already been created by love. Its reality has already been established by that which created it, which ain't me. Okay? So when I'm feeling guilty, it's because my ego violated the laws of love. I will judge your reality as I see fit. Okay? Now, it says, yes, the ego has violated the laws of love and thought lovelessly and acted lovelessly, but I haven't. Not me, just the ego has. Okay? Nice. This is the way to escape guilt. Okay? Now, if you are unclear about what the Course is meaning by guilt, it's any time that you are feeling ashamed, or any time you're having the desire to hide something. I don't really want to know about that. I don't want other people to know about that. I don't want that to show. I just rather hide that. Okay? That is what you are feeling guilty about. It's also that which you tend to be most defensive around. The thing you feel a little ashamed about, the thing you feel most guilty about, that's the thing when it comes up, you're defensive. You're ready to fight. Okay? This is guilt. Okay? Some of us go, well, I can't relate to guilt. But just in case you're not sure what it's referring to, that's what it's referring to of guilt. So whenever you feel that feeling, ooh, I don't want people to know about that, I don't want to think about that myself, I feel ashamed about that, I'm really defensive about that, that's a place where your ego has violated the laws of love. It has been thinking and acting lovelessly. Okay? And then it says, here's what you need to do. Okay? Yeah, my ego's been out there attacking love, violating love. Okay? What I'm supposed to do is take that violation, those actions, those loveless thoughts and actions. I'm supposed to take them and I'm supposed to give them over to my higher mind, my love teacher within me, Holy Spirit, whatever you call that being, whatever you call that higher mind being, your internal teacher. Instead of mulling over and going, I can't believe I did that, oh, I'm such a terrible person, I can't believe I did that, oh God, He said, don't do that. Realize your ego's violated laws of love, you haven't, and give them over. Leave those sins to your loving higher mind teacher immediately. Don't hang on to the thing you feel ashamed of doing. Hand it over immediately. Because that's what this plan is for. That's what the Course in Miracles is for. What's the Course in Miracles for? Taking those loveless thoughts and actions that you feel ashamed of and transforming them. That's a miracle. You go, ooh, I don't like that I did that. Oh, that was so, I feel embarrassed about that. Oh, I feel ashamed about that. I want to hide that. I'm very defensive about that. But if I'll give it to my higher mind will go, thank you very much. And now we're going to transform this into love, into a miracle. Poof. And then in its place, there's a miracle. There's a beautiful gift that you could have never conceived was possible in that situation where you were feeling so guilty. He says, you're supposed to give it over. That's what the Course in Miracles is for. And in other words, you've got to let your higher mind help you change your mind about whom you think your ego has hurt. And what am I feeling guilty about? I have had some very unloving thoughts about people and myself. I think I've hurt people. If you have a thought, if you have the thought to think lovelessly about somebody, you better believe it has power. or else you wouldn't think that way. When you think angrily or judgmentally or unlovingly about another person, you automatically also think that you've actually done something. Or else you wouldn't feel guilty, right? You wouldn't go, oh, right? Be saying that you feel guilty because you believe that your unloving thoughts have done something. You believe that when you think lovelessly about somebody else, that you really have changed them into what you would have them be in that moment. Interesting. Or else why would we try to hide it? Why would we feel guilty about it? If I knew that my unloving thoughts about other people didn't affect their reality at all, I wouldn't feel guilty about it. I'd go, I'd like to kill that person. Ha 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 ha. I would laugh about it. But I don't laugh about it, I hide it. I love everybody, right? So in other words, what does he say? He says, we've got to allow our mind to be changed about those whom we think we've hurt. And anybody whom we have judged is somebody we think we've hurt. And wherever I'm feeling guilty or ashamed is someplace where I think I have hurt somebody with my unloving thoughts. Okay? Now in reality, have I changed their reality one bit from what God created them to what I want to see them as in that moment? Have I changed them one bit? Have that made them any less pure, any less innocent, any less perfect? No, I haven't. Just because I judge them doesn't mean anything. Nothing happened. God didn't create souls who could be damaged by my misperceptions. That would be a very smart and loving creator. Okay? So in other words, you've got to let the higher mind change your mind about those whom you think your ego has hurt. Because until you do that, your ego's still in charge. Wow. So I'm feeling guilty. Who is it that I think I've hurt? Who is it that I think I've hurt? Who is it that I've been judging lovelessly today? Who is it that I've been having really unloving, judgmental thoughts about today? Okay, higher mind, that's not too hard to identify. There's been a lot of people that I've been judging and having unloving thoughts about today. There's a lot of people today whom I think I have hurt. And you know what, Holy Spirit? If I don't give those thoughts to you, I'm going to feel guilty about them. I'm going to feel ashamed of them, and I'm going to be defensive about them, and I'm going to project them, and I'm going to hide them. Wow.
I'm going to act on them.
And I'm going to act on them. Exactly. And so if I want to escape the shame and the guilt that I feel that keeps me always hiding and always defensive, hair trigger. If I want to escape that, then I'm going to have to give those ways I think I've hurt other people to the higher mind. Wow. Okay. And he says, until you do that, your ego will be in command because only the ego can experience guilt. And what are we supposed to say to ourselves when we notice that we feel ashamed? When we feel shame or guilt or the desire to hide, we're supposed to say, this need not be. I don't have to feel this way. Yes, I thought lovelessly today. Yes, I was judgmental today. Yes, I feel ashamed of how hurtful I fear that I was, even though I had a big smile on my face. Yes, I was, but I don't need to feel guilty about it. I don't need to feel guilty about it. I don't need to feel guilty about being so judgmental today. I don't need to feel guilty about being mean to that person today. I don't need to feel guilty about it. Here's all I have to do. Tell myself I don't have to feel guilty, and then give that guilt to your higher mind. Higher mind, I am so judgmental today. I really feel guilty, feel ashamed of how unloving my thoughts were about that person, and I'm afraid that I hurt them.
So you
Decide for peace for me.
you can do the forgiveness thing, which is changing your thoughts about them. And that will extract the guilt from you because you see them differently now.
Yes, and I wouldn't necessarily say I change my thought about them. I get honest about my ego thoughts,
Yes.
and I hand them over, and I ask for correction. It's not me that's going to change that. It's only me who can be honest, as evidenced by my emotion, and then hand it over and ask for a correct perception of the person I have been judging. So it's not me who's changing my perception.
It's also we forgot the truth. I mean, what is not of God doesn't have the power to do anything.
That's right.
Which is something like that.
Exactly.
Your
Listen,
unloving
yeah.
thoughts don't have any
That's exactly
power,
right.
but you forgot that, or you wouldn't be worried about it.
Or I wouldn't be judging. If I knew that unloving thoughts didn't have any power to change reality, the reality love created, then I wouldn't be judging, and then I wouldn't be feeling guilty about my judgmental, angry ego thoughts. Well, if I knew that God's creation could not be changed by what I think of people, if I knew that all the souls that God created couldn't be changed one whit no matter what I thought about them, then number one, I wouldn't even attempt to judge them and interpret them as I saw fit. And number two, if I did, I wouldn't feel guilty. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, that was so mean. Oh my God, I'm such a bad person. Oh my God, what's wrong with me? Oh my God, I'm so unloving. I'm so judgmental. I'm so critical. God, right? I would just be like, oh, what a silly thought, what a funny thought that was. Right? That's why. So that's the answer to guilt or shame. All right. Any questions about that? Okay. So in other words, what we're being asked to do and what we're being helped to do in this particular section is we're being helped to watch your mind for the temptations of the ego. Okay. What we just talked about, those are all the temptations of the ego. Feel bad, feel depressed, feel sad, feel guilty, feel anxious, feel ashamed. They're all temptations of the ego. What am I supposed to do? Watch my mind. Watch my mind. Watch. Watch my emotions. Watch my thoughts behind the emotions. For what? The deceptions of my own ego. And then what I'm supposed to do now is once I see the deceptions of my ego, I'm supposed to know that my ego and all of its emotions and deceptions offers me nothing. Okay, I see all that, and I remember the guilt offers me nothing, anxiety offers me nothing, fear, sadness, depression offers me nothing. That is not going to get me what I want. It's not going to be helpful. Okay, I can feel depressed and ashamed and guilty all day long, lifetime after lifetime. But it's still not going to give me what I want, just because I think I should feel that way. And then it says, when you have given up this voluntary dispiriting, when you have given up those voluntary dispiriting emotions we just talked about, then here's what's going to happen. You're going to see how your mind can focus and rise above fatigue and heal. Oh, that's what all this is for. When I see those temptations and I don't fall for it, and I say I'm not going to voluntarily make myself feel bad anymore. We're voluntarily dispiriting ourselves. Oh, I volunteer to be miserable. I volunteer to dispirit myself. I don't have to feel guilty. I don't have to feel depressed or sad or anxious or ashamed. I don't have to, but I want to. I will. When you give up this voluntary putting yourself into a bad mood, then what you're going to do is your mind will now be able to focus, and then it will rise above fatigue. Isn't that interesting? All those emotions we just talked about, fatiguing.
Yeah.
You notice how feeling depressed does not energize you, right? Feeling guilty doesn't energize you. It dispirits you, okay? It's fatiguing. And the Course says that's why we're really tired all the time. We're not tired all the time because we're doing so much. We're tired all the time because we are fatiguing ourselves by voluntarily dispiriting ourselves. That's why we're tired. I'm so exhausted. If you weren't doing a voluntary dispiriting, then you could be active all day long, doing things that make you happy, and you'd still have energy. What'd you say, Billy?
I just said diseasing,
Yes.
diseasing,
Mhm.
diseasing.
Yes. Wow. Okay. Then he says, but you may have noticed you are not sufficiently vigilant against the demands of the ego to disengage yourself. Wow. I'm what? I'm not sufficiently vigilant against the temptations or the demands of the ego to what? To disengage myself from the ego. So when the ego goes, you should feel depressed about that. You should feel angry about that. You should feel anxious right about now. You know what could happen, right? You know what could happen. You should be feeling very anxious right now. Or when the ego says, you should feel ashamed. I'd hide that if I were you. And the ego tempts us with that. We go, and we are not sufficiently vigilant against it enough to go, no, thank you. Thank you. I've already done that, and so come out of that, and it wasn't any good. We are not sufficiently vigilant enough to say no when the ego tempts us with those demands. Isn't that interesting? All those negative emotions those are ego demands. You better feel guilty. You better feel anxious. Feel afraid. And we go, okay. Instead of going, we are not yet sufficiently vigilant enough to say, no, thank you. Thanks, ego, but no. Because I've already done that. I already said, yes, I'll feel depressed, anxious, afraid, and ashamed. And look what happened. Just more of that. So he says, and yes, you may not be vigilant yet enough against the ego's demands to say, no thank you, no thank you, no thank you, fear. But that need not be either. It doesn't have to be that way. It could just as easily be such that when the ego says, feel ashamed, be depressed, feel anxious, feel afraid, feel depressed, feel sad, we could go, yeah, I noticed that temptation to feel sad and depressed and anxious, but no. Imagine that. Can you imagine? Your ego says, feel bad. And you go, no thanks. Wow. That's what is possible for us. That's what's in our future. That's what we're evolving to. Where the ego makes a demand and we go, no thank you. Thanks, but no thanks. Thanks for sharing. That's where we're heading to. Isn't that wonderful?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not sufficiently vigilant now against your ego's demands to feel bad, it doesn't have to be that way. It could be otherwise, and it will be. As soon as you're done and you have reached your threshold of pain. Nice.
So this vigilance is where you stop believing it and recognize it just for another temptation.
Exactly. You just, all of a sudden you go, oh, that's a temptation. I don't have to feel that way. Now, can you imagine, can you sense the kind of power that you will experience in yourself the first time you have that awareness of your ego tempting you and you go, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to read my workbook lesson. Nah, I'm going to pray. Yeah, there was a time where I would have just given into that like that. But not today, not today. Because now I know I can be happy. Now I know I could have peace. Now I know I could have a miracle instead. And I think I'm going to go for that. Right? All right.
Now you truly are controlling your mood.
Now you truly are controlling your mood. Now you are in charge of your mind instead of your ego. Right? For a long time, the madman that is our ego has been in control of our mind. And it was cruel. It's been a cruel master. And this cruel master goes, feel bad. Feel bad. Feel guilty. Be ashamed. Hide. Attack. And we go, yes, master. Yes, master. Oh, my mind belongs to you, master. That's the way it's been for a long time. Lifetimes, maybe. And then our teacher goes, well, you don't have to be like that. Our teacher doesn't say, oh, you shouldn't be that way, or oh, don't be stupid, or oh, don't be weak. What does our teacher say? Well, it doesn't have to be that way. Okay, teacher. And when you're most upset and somebody says to you, oh, okay, well, you know it doesn't have to be that way, right? That's when we're most offended by them. How dare you? You know this is the only way to see this. All right, so we're going to stop here tonight. We're going to do some announcements, and then we're going to do our integration meditation. And then in the integration meditation, we take the ideas and we use them. We use them on something that's real and happening for you today. All right. So thank you for your financial expressions of appreciation. Thank you very much for them. This is part of what I do for a living. And this is also how we support this miracle of a place. And we have this class in. All my classes are on YouTube. And just put my name in and you'll have all my classes. My Course in Miracles readings. I read the course, the music. And so I just have them that if you can't read the book for whatever reason, then you can just listen to it in a very soothing kind of way. Those are my lullaby course readings on my website. I also put all my meditations up on YouTube as well. So my opening meditations, you can take those opening meditations and put them in a playlist and then use them as a meditation guide if you could use something like that. So that's all on YouTube. All right? And then on the table are my cards if you want to know how to spell my name or you want to learn about my holistic counseling practice. My cards are on the piano. Also on the piano are a collection of meditation mandalas that one of my aunts in Atlanta creates for meditation aids. And they're beautiful, powerful meditation aids as well as gorgeous art pieces. And I love you so much, I'm willing to let you have some of them. It's very difficult for me to let them go. I want them all. So I am willing to let you have some as well and hoard them for myself. I just want to acknowledge myself for that. My ego told me, hoard them for yourself. And I'm going to resist that temptation and say, no, thank you. So those are $10 a piece, and if you want one, put the money for them in that basket that has the orange card, okay? All right, then all those all go to my aunt in Atlanta. So, any questions or comments or announcements before we close up and do our integration meditation? What's one thing you heard today that was just, that you know if you used it, it would change your world? This need not be. Wow, what a radical idea. Perfectly simple, perfectly radical.
I think they were all good. I couldn't choose between them. But just knowing this need not be, if I could remember.
That's right. That's
that
right.
phrase.
That's right. Just saying this need not be is the way that you say no thank you to the ego demands.
It's so liberating just in itself.
It's so perfectly liberating even in
Yeah.
itself. This need not be. I don't have to feel this way. You know, just because the ego madman comes in and says, you should feel that way, doesn't mean you have to feel that way. Imagine that. Wow. Okay, so now we're going to do our integration meditation. So what I want you to do is just close your eyes and just tune into how you feel right now. How do you feel right now, having heard these ideas and having heard them with other like-minded beings? Beautiful. So the first thing I want you to do is bring to your awareness a situation in which you recognize that you were in a bad mood. You weren't even anywhere close to being wholly joyous. You were in a bad mood. And I want you to see the people or the places or the things in that situation. Notice how you were feeling. Notice the bad mood. And then I want you to look into that situation, and I want you to look to see where it is that you had thought wrongly or thought lovelessly about some soul that God had created. What was the unloving thought? What was the unloving thought that you thought that probably the loving mind of God would not have thought about this soul? And then I want you to ask yourself, what is it that the mind of love, God, would have thought about this person that I didn't think? And then decide to align your thinking with God's mind, with God's thought about that person. And now I want you to bring to your awareness a situation or a relationship in which you experienced some depression or sadness. I want you to see that situation. I want you to see the people involved in it. See their faces. See the situation. Take note of the feeling of depression or sadness. How did that feel? And then I want you to look within and ask yourself, what is it that I believe I'm being deprived of in this situation? What is the thing I want that I think I'm being deprived of in this relationship? Beautiful. And then I want you to know that this depression need not be. Tell yourself, this need not be. And then tell yourself the truth. I am deprived of nothing except by my own decision, and right now I decide otherwise. Beautiful. And now I want you to bring to your awareness a situation or a relationship in which you are feeling anxious, afraid of what's going to come, afraid of what might happen in the future. Should bring that situation to your awareness. I want you to see the faces of the people it involves. Feel what that feeling of fear for the future feels like. And then tell yourself, this need not be. This is not the only response possible. This is not the only way to feel about this situation. And I want you to tell yourself, I don't need to be anxious because no matter what happens in the future, the truth about me and about life will always be more powerful than anything of the ego. Love will always be stronger than fear, no matter what comes up. My love will always be stronger than the chaos and the pain. And then breathe into that. Breathe and feel that anxiety melting away, dissolving. And then one more. I want you to bring to your awareness a situation where you are feeling guilty or ashamed or in temptation to hide something or be defensive. A situation in which you are feeling guilty. And I want you to see the people and the faces involved. And I want you to look within and see where your ego has violated the laws of love. Where has your ego been unloving? Where is your ego feeling guilty about the unloving thoughts and the damage that it believes it has done with its unloving thoughts? Ask yourself, who is it that I believe that I have hurt with my unloving thoughts or actions? And when you have identified those people and those unloving thoughts and actions, don't mull over them. Immediately give them to Spirit and say, Spirit, this is whom I believe my ego has hurt. This is how I believe I have hurt them. Spirit, I feel guilty because I feel like I have hurt so-and-so with my unloving thoughts or actions. I feel guilty, feel ashamed. And then tell yourself, but it need not be that I feel guilty. I don't need to feel guilty. Because Spirit will correct those thoughts and actions if I will let it. Beautiful. Now I just want you to rest for a few moments more in the experiencing the internal sensation of disengaging yourself from the temptations of your ego. Feel what that feels like. Feel what it feels like to see the temptation in those emotions and to say no and to choose again. How does that feel? And just breathe into that feeling for a moment. Feel the power, feel the empowerment, feel the safety, feel the security, feel the peace of knowing this need not be. I could experience heaven. Beautiful. And then just take another good, deep, cleansing breath, let it go, and bring your awareness back into your body, into this chair, in this room, remembering that you can return to this place of correct perception in your mind anytime, anywhere, for free. All right, you guys. Thank you guys for being
Thank
here.
you.
Really,
Thank you.
thank you. If you weren't here, I might not say this out loud. If you weren't here, I may not be doing this every week. And I wouldn't be saying it and I wouldn't be remembering it. So thank you. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you next time I see you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.